In Glasgow, between 2010 and 2017, they had the highest rate of knife crime in Europe, almost predominantly white. How do you explain that?
This is not an ethnic issue. This is an issue about fathers across the ethnic spectrum not caring about their children. And it's really, you know, I speak as a practitioner who, when you have a problem with a youngster, it's always the mum who turns up. And mums are fully stretched. They're having to go out to work to support their families. They're having to worry about what's happening to their children at home. And you never see dad. Now, that doesn't mean that, you know, families are always going to be united, always together. But you need dads to turn up to care about their children, because if they don't, the message goes out, my dad doesn't care.
I think we need to recognise that violence has moved on, and a lot of assumptions are made about why certain things happen. And that's why I'm involved in a Youth Violence Commission, really doing some definitive data analysis and Safer Life survey, looking at why violence happens now. And parenting is very important. In fact, we've got young people who's hosting an event at City Hall today, the peer outreach team. And what we do is to make sure that young people are at the centre, so we know exactly why they can pick up a knife or a gun.
And what do they say?
They're saying that in a lot of ways is peer pressure and fear.
The knife crime epidemic in London in particular, at the moment, is largely driven by young black youths. Nobody's disputing that, right? You wouldn't dispute that?
Yeah, because a lot of the areas where crime is infested is where black communities have been ghettoised in a lot of ways.
Right, so if we accept that as an agreed fact, I'm trying to work out where we get to points of agreement here. There is clearly an issue there. Do you think that any of that is down to feckless fathers?
I think fathers, to some extent, but I also think it's a lot of the safeguarding agencies that have been run into the ground, austerity, and then you've got these people who are grooming young people on such a major scale, because the social media is an accelerant to this whole virus violence.
No, I don't agree with that. Money is going into these agencies. It's about time the police took control of what's happening on the streets of London.
And how should they do that?
For goodness sake, if you talk to the dozen or so secondary head teachers in Hackney, they would be able to tell you who the gang... They would be able to tell you who the gang leaders were.
Yeah,
those gang leaders are still on the streets. They should not be on the streets. The police should be doing something about it.
Can I just say, I used to be the superintendent in Hackney when you were head at Mossbourne in Hackney. And one of the major things that used to contribute to crime was exclusions. I used to have a major issue with the heads because they used to exclude and don't realise that that youngster is 4 to 5 times more likely to be involved in crime.
If you're excluded for bad behaviour, though, or for even perhaps carrying a weapon, but you're saying that can then lead to problems. What do you do?
That's a nonsense. It's a nonsense. It's a long and tortuous process to exclude children, and head teachers always use it as a last resort. If you look at Hackney, which you know well, Hackney is now one of the best performing parts of London. There's a certain lack of respect now for police officers.
Yeah. I agree. If you're in a gang of 10,
I remember one incident where a group of about 20 youngsters turned up after one of my lads in the school. I had to go out with some of my senior members of staff and call for the police. The police turned up on their bikes and their bike helmets. And the abuse those police officers got, and nothing happened. I started shouting at these youngsters, and one police officer came up to me and said, please don't do that. That you could find...
And a lot of that is driven, of course, I have to say, by a lot of rap stars, right, who have a very anti-police rhetoric. And that gets picked up. But you can't ignore that.
No,
these kids worship these rap stars, and a lot of them are about killing police officers.
Well, exactly. And I mean, you need to... as I said, the Safer Life survey we're doing with the Youth Violence Commission, which I believe is starting to show the extent of all these issues have on young people, because a lot of them are dealing with trauma. You know, social media, again, is the accelerant of communication of where they've seen people injured. Not necessarily they've seen it themselves or been involved in it themselves. So you have to recognise the social media. And I think it's also putting young people at the centre. You can't arrest your way out of this problem. You can't stop and search your way out of this problem. So you have to move away from this enforcement.
Actually, why can't you?
Because there's no correlation between stop and search and knife crime.
Think about stop and searches. You've only got to worry about stop and search if you're carrying something, haven't you?
Yeah, but
if you haven't, what's the problem?
Well, because if you're
5% of stop and search results in getting a
if whatever the figure is at the moment, but if 90% of the knife crime in this capital city right now is being conducted by young black gang members, what is wrong with stopping and searching young black youths who look like they might be in a gang?
You've got to accept
You've got to make sure that young people are at the centre of what you're doing and to ensure that you've got the community. You can't be seen as an occupying force.
You've got to accept that these young men are not fearful of the police anymore. They do what they do.
They don't fear authority figures, per se.
They certainly did in my school.
That I can believe.
An war story.
I can believe that.
Things have moved on, and that's why we need to know what the Youth Violence Commission is doing.
You know what?
It's going to be really
we have to leave it
up
there.
to date.